Welcome to our weekly live Q&A session on YouTube. For anyone who's been here before, welcome back. To anyone brand new, welcome, and by all means let me know if you have any comments or questions that we've got during this video. I have a camera and a phone right in front of me so I can answer your questions. They pop up on the screen here, so please get involved because today we're going to be talking about a brand new test bike that I am quite excited about. Oh, good morning, Shed Life Guy. We've just had a message come through. Enlighten us with this week's wisdom. Well, I don't know if there'll be that much wisdom, Shed Life Guy, but I'll do my best. I'll let this bike do a lot of the talking because I'm pretty excited about this new test bike that's turned up. So this only arrived a few days ago. I just got it built earlier this week. You might have seen a first look story on singletrackworld.com. There was also a first look video that's been on YouTube and on Facebook as well. I got it out onto the trail yesterday and I actually filmed a video, took the GoPro along, had the chest cam on, microphone on. So there's basically a video of me gas bagging about this bike, riding around on the trail, very nearly crashing several times. It was quite exciting. And I'll be editing that video soon, so you'll be able to see that on YouTube. If anyone who's joining us at the moment is not yet a subscriber, you can click that button. It's right below this video. If you hit subscribe, that means you'll get notified of all the videos we're working on in the future. It also means you'll get notified of future YouTube live videos that we're doing. So we're trying to do this video once a week, every Friday morning, Aussie time, Thursday evening, UK time. And we'd love for you guys to get involved. This is a live video. I'm not pre-recorded. You'll be able to tell by all the horrible mistakes I'll make along through this video. So by all means, get involved. Let me know what questions you've got. Let me know where in the world you're watching from. We'd love to know. And we're going to be talking a little bit later on, not only just about this bike, but also about some riding plans for this weekend. So without further ado, I should introduce this bike, shouldn't I? You can probably tell by the title of the video. There's a big clue there. This is a new bike from Whyte. Well, relatively new. It's the newest model that these guys have done. I'm just going to shift this camera up a little bit, just so I can... Yep, there we go. That's a bit better. Right, so this is the S-120, and it's from UK brand Whyte. Now, most of you in the UK will obviously be familiar with Whyte. They're a big in-house brand in the UK, or medium-sized, I should say. Been around for a while, but the last few years they've been kicking some serious goals with a few different models. The T130 trail bike in particular, to a UK or Welsh trail, UK or Welsh, English or Welsh, or even Scottish trail centre, and not seen a T130. They're everywhere. And for very good reason. That is a really, really fun 27.5 trail bike, 130mm trail bike. This is the S-120 though. This is new. Now the S-120 is kind of, shall we say, the spiritual successor to the T129. The T129 was the first 29er, I think, that Whyte introduced, or at least the first full suspension 29er. Anyone out there can correct me on that one, but I believe it was the first, definitely the first full suspension 29er that Whyte released. And when it came out, geez, that was quite a few years ago now, it was pretty damn radical at the time. Whyte kind of pushed the boundaries with geometry then. The T129, it was quite a bit slacker for a 29er, especially a full suspension 29er. Had a really short back end. It had a few ingredients there that made it quite a raucous, kind of fun trail bike. And at the time, 29ers were just sort of cross-country. They were steep and short and kind of awkward and really focused on cross-country racing, so hardtails and short travel dualies. And that Whyte T129 came along and kind of just made a lot of things a whole lot of fun. Oh, we got Woody Hardboner in the house, waving. There we go, wave back. Welcome, Woody. Thanks for joining, and thanks for coming back to YouTube Live with Singletrack and myself here in the magical Singletrack Southern headquarters, I'm going to call it. So yes, so the S-120 is basically the modern incarnation of the T129. Whyte had a year gap where they kind of dropped the T129, and in that time they were working on this guy here. Oh, we got Missing Link MTB, watching while playing Overwatch. Oh, multitasking, very impressive. And so the S-120 is their new 120mm trail bike. And we've got Thomas Lee watching from Switzerland. Welcome to the show. And we have Matthew here. Yo, from the Quantox. Yo, Matthew, thanks for tuning in. And Woody Hardboner, I'm a great fan. Oh, fantastic. Well, I'm glad you're enjoying the show, mate. Thanks for coming back. We've got this live show every Friday or Thursday evening. Reese Powell, oh, my old neighbour from Tobberton. Hello, Reese. Welcome back. Of course, Woody is from Warsaw, Poland. So quite far away from Australia here in Bendigo, where I'm filming this from. But that's the beauty of YouTube Live. You can be anywhere in the world and you can be joining us here in the workshop. Matthew says, such a nice bike. Yeah, I think the looks are growing on me. The immediate kind of reaction that I had with this bike, I wasn't totally sold on the aesthetics. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter that much how good a bike looks. Ultimately, it's what it's like to ride on the trail. But I must say the looks are growing on me a little bit of this S-120. All right, Jensen, anyone having doubts about Whyte? Don't buy the damn thing. Riding the T130 RS myself. Jensen there is a big fan of Whyte, if you can't tell. Jamie Milden, we've got, hey guys from the UK. Hello, Jamie, welcome all the way from the UK. And Tonyo boys back in the house. Hey, Will, hey, Tonyo, thanks for joining. And thanks for coming back for YouTube Live. So, yeah, we're just talking about the S-120 we've got here. You might be familiar with Whyte's S-150. Now, that came out last year, it was? Maybe a year and a half ago. Oh, thumbs up to Tonyo boy. Yes, absolutely. I'll reciprocate with a thumbs up. The S-150 is Whyte's 150mm travel 29er enduro bike. Confusingly, though, the S in the S-150 stands for switch, and by that, Whyte means you can switch the wheel size on the S-150. So it's a 150mm travel 29, and you can fit big tyres in it. I think it's got clearance of 2.6-inch 29er tyres, but you can switch the wheels to 27.5 plus, and Whyte actually offers an upgrade kit where they sell the wheels, the tyres, tubeless sealant, all the tools to switch the wheels over, which is quite neat. Matthew's saying the S-120C RS, super nice too. Yeah, very, very, very sweet bike. Again, a very popular bike in the UK. Whyte being a British brand, British design, British engineering, very much designed for the UK market and very, very popular there. But they are available in Australia. There's a guy up in Sydney who distributes, Whyte has been doing it for a number of years. The distributor's called Carbuta, and that's where I got this test bike from. So on the S-150, it's kind of the big burly enduro bike, and it's purpose built for racing. A lot of the Whyte enduro team are actually racing on that S-150. So Whyte last year, about 6 months ago, maybe a little less, about 6 months ago, released this bike, the S-120. Now the clue is in the name, 120mm of travel. Confusingly though, the S does not stand for switch on this bike. This is a dedicated 29er, so you cannot run 27.5 plus wheels on this bike. So whereas the S-150 you can fit 27.5 plus or 29, this bike is 29-inch only. It's a bit more of a purist kind of bike. They've kind of condensed it down, reduced some of the bells and whistles, and they've gone, this is a 120mm travel 29er trail bike. It's fast, it's sharp, it's agile. That's what we're doing. Fraser's in the house. The dropper is supposed to be a revelation. You're getting a little bit ahead of me there, Fraser, but I will indulge you. Yes, Revive dropper post. We're going to talk about that soon. Very, very good. An interesting spec choice, by the way. So the S-120, so we're just saying it's 29er trail bike, 120mm travel, front and rear, balanced front and rear. Maximum tyre clearance is fairly slim. You can only fit, according to Whyte, a 2.3-inch rear tyre on the back here is the maximum tyre width for the S-120. So this isn't this sort of like, you know, you can fit plus tyres or you can fit semi-plus or you can kind of switch wheels around. They've gone, no, this is what we want to do with this bike. That's it. We're designing it and engineering this bike around 29er wheels. 2.3 is about the maximum wheel size. It's kind of a burly XC / lightweight trail bike. So, you know, that kind of market. Now, competitors to this bike, we're talking Specialized Stump Jumper ST. That's also 120mm travel 29er. In the grand scheme of things, with bikes I've been testing lately, the Merida 120, also 120mm travel trail bike, 29er trail bike, and Canyon Neuron CF. We've got the Fuel EX, which is a bit burlier, 130mm front and rear. But yeah, that kind of market that we're going for. Not quite a cross-country race bike, you know, not quite your long travel all mountain bike, somewhere in between. Oh, we just had a comment popped up there that I think I missed. Jensen, yes, UK brand, and as said, developed for the UK, rides good in Denmark too. Absolutely, just because it's designed in the UK doesn't mean it can't ride elsewhere in the world. Now, I did take this bike out yesterday for a bit of a shakedown ride, so we'll talk a little bit about how, at least my first impressions of riding this bike. So there are a few things on here that I'm kind of excited about. Whyte is, of course, quite well known for pushing the envelope with geometry and being very steadfast in what they believe makes a mountain bike ride well. And they kind of have this very progressive approach to geometry, which runs through the whole range. So whether it's kind of a 700-pound hardtail or, you know, a 5,000-pound full XTR carbon fiber bling machine, they're all designed with a similar ethos with geometry, and this S-120 kind of packages that ethos really, really well. So compared to other 120mm travel trail bikes, it is a lot slacker. You can probably tell in the video, this is a really accurate representation of how slack this is. Shed Life Guy, I like the Spengel wheels on the ST stump jumper. Not so sure about that truss fork. Oh yes, you're talking about the Instagram photo that the guys put up. That was the stump jumper Evo. That's why it's super duper duper slack. I think it's a 63.5 head angle on that stump jumper Evo. With the truss fork and the Spengel wheels, absolutely bananas. So I feel like there's some other weird and wacky things that can get put on that bike to kind of take it to the next level. But yeah, pretty wild. If anyone's wondering what Shed Life Guy is talking about there, jump on our Instagram account, Singletrack Mag, and have a look for the freakiest bike you'll ever see, and probably one of the most expensive as well. It's absolutely bananas. Anyway, back to this bike. So compared to other 120mm travel trail bikes, this is considerably slacker, considerably longer as well. Oh yeah, that's kind of the thing to do at the moment, but Whyte really has embraced this, and has embraced this for quite a long time. We're not just talking about jumping on a bandwagon here. This is a brand that has been pushing that longer and slacker kind of ethos for, well, years and years and years, at least as long as I've been riding Whyte, testing Whyte bikes. 65.5 degree head angle. Very, very slack for what is a 120mm travel trail bike. To put that in perspective, Specialized Stump Jumper ST is 67.5. This is a full 2 degrees slacker in the head angle. It's really long as well, so huge long top tube here, really long front center. The reach on the medium S-120 is the same as the reach as a large Stump Jumper ST. So it's a lot longer in the front center. 456mm reaches on the medium. I'll give you the sizes for the others because we've got a small size and this is available. 432 in the small, 456mm in the medium, 480mm in the large, and if you want an XL, now for the tall riders out there, this is very, very good news, 504mm. That's the reach for the extra large frame size. So it is huge. It is really, really big. Now, Whyte's kind of been about this long reach kind of, you know, short back end, long front end for quite some time. So Fraser says the same head tube angle as my Rayon. Yeah, exactly. It's so a few people commented on the first look video and have gone 65.5. That's not that slack. It is for a bike like this, given how little travel it has and the fact it's a burly cross-country bike. You know, it's not the Stump Jumper Evo. Yeah, that's slacker, of course. Orbea Rayon, that's a 150mm 29er, I think. So to put it in perspective, it's very slack, given the type of bike that it is, for sure. So yeah, very, very long, very slack. Whyte has reined that in with a short little 40mm long stem, so it's a very, very short stem. Now you get that stem length whether you get a small, medium, large or extra large. So in Whyte's belief, the handling, the front end steering should be the same whether you're on a small or an extra large. So they optimize every frame size around the same stem length and handlebar width as well, I should add. So 40mm long stem, 780mm wide handlebars. So although you have that enormous reach, you know, the short stem and wide bars kind of bring the grips back to you. So it doesn't feel like you're on a super long, awkward cross-country bike. They kind of bring the handlebars back to you with that short little stem. We just had a comment come through there from Good Soul. So is such a slack bike a pig to handle in low-speed twisty stuff? Excellent question. part of what we were just talking about there, about that 40mm long stem. Aside from bringing the bars back, that shorter stem gives you more leverage over the front wheel. So this is kind of the balancing act with going to such a long front center and such a slack head angle. If you can bring that stem length down, you speed up the steering. So, I mean, I've only had one ride on this bike so far. I need to go take it to some local test loops that do have really tight uphill switchbacks, which is usually a good test for that kind of steering geometry. But that short stem, so far, that short stem, it does keep the front wheel fairly responsive, given how long, you know, the front of this bike is. The other key ingredient to agility as well is it does have quite a short back end, 430mm chainstay length. So that's shorter than the EX. It's a lot shorter than the Canyon Neuron. It's 5mm shorter than the Merida 120. It's quite short. I mean, you can go shorter than that, but you're going to start to run into issues with front end lift on the climbs as well. So 430, maybe that's the limit. I don't know, but it does mean that this bike feels and handles a lot sharper than probably what you think it would, given how slack it is in the head angle there. Mark Davies is asking a question here. What is the perfect head angle for a trail bike? Great question. I mean, how long is a piece of string? That's a really good question. It's a really difficult one to answer because there are so many attributes to geometry. Of course, you've got head angle. That is one number in the equation. We've got things like reach and stack. So how tall the head tube sits off the ground, how far away the head tube is from the bottom bracket, so how long your reach is. We've got things like stem length, handlebar width, you know, stem height, handlebar position, you've got bar roll. There are all these attributes that combine. Fork offset, that's another hot one at the moment. Fork offset, because of course the trail measurement is influenced by head angle and fork offset. So it's impossible to say that one head angle is better than the other because there are so many attributes that go together in a trail bike. If I want to give you an answer though, because that's me just kind of beating around the bush, for a trail bike, if we're talking about this kind of 120, 130mm genre, most trail bikes are settling somewhere between 65.5 and about 67.5 degrees in the head angle. So that seems to be the new school kind of numbers for this type of trail bike. So hopefully that gives you some kind of answer. And I'm not trying to cheat you out of a response there, but it's worth bearing in mind that when you're looking at a geometry chart, it isn't just about one number. It's not just about the head angle. It's not just about the seat angle. It's about how everything interacts together. And you'll find that the result, the riding package that you get on the trail is much more than just one number on the paper. So hopefully that helps give you a little bit of information there about that. So I might talk about this frame because there's a lot of really interesting features on here which I think add up to a really interesting ride quality. Matthew is asking a question here. We've got, I'm in the market for a bike of this type. So torn between the Canyon CF 9.0 and this. I take it you mean the Canyon Neuron CF 9.0 if we're talking about trail bike, 29er trail bikes. Can't help but feel the Canyon is better value. If we're talking about the Neuron CF versus the S-120 here, so far, and as I said, I've only had a ride on this. Yep, Neuron, all right, so we're talking about the same bike. I've only had one ride on this, but they are very, very different bikes, like opposite ends of the scale. So whereas the Neuron is your kind of more like a long-legged cross-country bike is the way I've described it before. A long-legged cross-country bike with sharper geometry. It's got a firm suspension design, so it pedals really well, even in the open position. You can just pedal on that bike. It's very responsive, really good feeling through the pedals, but it's very much on the XC side of the spectrum. This, on the other hand, is way over on the kind of all-mountain enduro side of the spectrum. Yes, it only has 120mm of travel, but so far on that ride I did yesterday, holy mackerel, does it want to go fast? It's ridiculous, actually, how quick this bike wants to go, but how calm and calculated it feels at high speed. And a lot of that is that geometry coming into play, that long front center, that slack head angle. We'll also talk about fork offset soon as well. But also the suspension design as well. It's more open and active compared to the suspension design that Canyon uses on the Neuron. So the suspension feels quite different. It doesn't feel quite as efficient as the Canyon, but it's more active and open. So very, very different bikes. Yeah, so although they might look similar on paper, the ride quality on the trail is quite different. So have a think about whether you want that kind of cross-country bike for long climbs. You know, you want to do big days in the saddle, but you're not doing as technical riding or as steep descending. That Canyon might be the better option. If you want to get your party on the trail, this might be a better option. So there we go. Jensen is saying, I've never seen any other brand which is as good weather / water sealing as Whyte. Being a British brand, yes, very, very important. My Whyte T130 RS from 2016 has a reach of 450 millimeters in a medium, long already then, and 420mm chainstays. Yes, because your bike has smaller 27.5-inch wheels, Whyte kind of slammed that chainstay length nice and short. That T130 is a really good bike. That was a long-term test bike of mine a couple of years ago, and I really, really enjoyed it. Matthew's going back to the Canyon Neuron versus Whyte S-120 conundrum. I don't know. I love both types of riding, N+1. Yes, that's correct. The answer to your question is just get more bikes. Jensen's saying he should sell Whyte bikes. Okay. Yeah, we'll try and avoid this becoming too much of a Whyte love-in, but I can't help but get excited about new bikes. It's kind of my job and why I enjoy doing my job. So apologies if I get a little bit excited. I'm not trying to sell the bike. I'm just getting excited about about riding it. So yeah, we're talking about this frame. So this is the 120C RS. Now the C stands for carbon. In typical Whyte fashion, this is a hybrid frame. So we have a carbon main frame and we have an alloy back end. Ooh, we've got a comment come through here from Len. If you're in between sizes, which way would you go? Ooh, that's a tricky question. Because this bike is so long, I'd be hesitant about upsizing. I would definitely not fit the large. This already feels kind of roomy, you know, kind of big. So, oh, that's a really good question. I know Whyte has a really strong demo fleet in the UK. So if there was any chance that you could demo one, or at the very least go into a bike shop and swing your leg over one, both a medium and a large, that will answer the question for you. But yes, very good question. In other brands, I would normally say upsize if you can. But because this is already quite a long bike as it is, that kind of reduces the need to upsize. It already comes with a short stem and wide bars. So if you went to a larger size, you can't really go much shorter on that stem length. You could go to a 33 millimeter, 33, 35-ish, you know, or a Pacenti P-dent bar and stem if you wanted to go really short. But then you're going to start to play around, mess around with Whyte's perfected handling on this bike. So yeah, so being so long, it does limit your ability to go to a bigger size and put a shorter stem on. So if I were you, I would try and swing my leg over a bike in a shop or organize a demo if you can. So yes, so the frame itself, we're talking about this carbon fiber monocoque main frame, alloy back end. Jensen was just talking about the weather sealing on this bike. It is pretty impressive. So we have internal routing through the down tube here. We've got this rubber grommet up here at the seat tube. This is like a little rubber condom, which basically stops water or reduces the amount of water and grit that can get through the seat tube, which will then hang out at your bottom bracket, which is generally a place you don't want water accumulating. So this little rubber sleeve here, they've been doing this for years, by the way. It's not a new thing. They've also got a hidden seat clamp system. This is called the Intergrip system. It's basically an internal wedge. So you've got your seat post inside the frame and a wedge there. So when you tighten up the bolt, the wedge presses on the seat post in a nice long surface area. It gives it lots of friction, and it means that you've got this nice clean assembly here without a traditional quick release clamp or a bolt-on clamp. We've got more questions, comments coming through here. I'm just going to say right now, I'm probably not going to be able to answer every question because we've got a lot of people watching this video. So just if I miss your question, apologies, but there are a lot coming through. Tonton is asking a question. Will, have you tried the T130 2019 yet? How does the S20 compare to the T130? No, I have not. This is the first Whyte I've ridden for a little while now, for a bit over a year. The T130, of course, is brand new as well for 2019. 2019 or 2018? Okay, stretching my memory a little bit there. So the S-120 is the 120mm travel 29er. T130 is a 27.5 130mm trail bike. Interesting you bring that up because they actually share the same mainframe. So this carbon fiber frame on the S-120C is the same carbon mainframe as the T130C. Whew, a lot of numbers and letters there. But yes, they do share the same mainframe. The back end is all unique. So this is a 29er specific back end for the S-120, and the T130 comes with its own 27.5 inch alloy back end. So welded alloy back end here. The shock length is different as well. So the eye-to-eye length, that is the total length of the shock from pivot bolt to pivot bolt, is 210 millimeters, and that's the same on both bikes. The stroke, however, is different. This is a 50 millimeter stroke. So it's a metric shock, it's 210 by 50 millimeters, and with this quad link 4-bar suspension design, so we have a 4-bar arrangement here with a horse link type pivot near the chainstay, down the bottom of the dropout there on the chainstay. We get 120 millimeters of travel, so fairly low average leverage ratio on this. The T130 comes with a slightly longer stroke, 55 millimeters, which gets you 130 mil of travel. Thomas Lee is in the house and he is saying, I'm not in the market for buying a new bike, and I'm a small person, 162 centimeters, but my question, will it feel too big, like with 29er wheels and aggressive geometry and wide handlebar? At 162 centimeters, so you're a good 13 centimeters shorter than I am. So the small is even, yeah, you're absolutely right. It may possibly still be too big. It's difficult for me to say whether it is or isn't, because things like inseam, your arm span as well. So you know how long your arms are and how comfortable that reach is going to feel. I would suggest speaking to Whyte about that. And as we mentioned before, someone was asking about if you're in between sizes. Get to a bike shop that stocks Whyte and see if you can sit on a small frame size, and you'll be able to find out very quickly if it's too big or not. But yes, very good question if you're outside the size range. And you can also get in touch with Whyte directly. I'm sure those guys would be more than happy to help you out with sizing advice. Right, what we're going to talk about next. Oh, lifetime pivot bearing warranty. That's pretty cool, huh? So this is the thing that Whyte has had since day one. Since the PRS-T1. Does anyone remember the Preston, the original Whyte full suspension bike, designed and engineered by John Whyte himself? That was probably the most ugly bike that has ever existed on the market. Now that's a bike that we should put that trust fork and the Spengler wheels on. That would be amazing. But anyway, ever since day one, Matthew's saying, yeah, it was mental. It was proper mental. I think that bike needs to come back personally. I think the market's now ready for that kind of technology. Back then, whew, that was like the DeLorean, wasn't it? It was unbelievable. But anyway, ever since day one, Whyte has provided a lifetime bearing warranty on all of their full suspension bikes. Now the fine print, as I understand, please don't take my word for it, check with Whyte on this, but as I understand, that's valid for the original owner. And basically you get that through your local Whyte dealer or Whyte distributor if you're in another country like Australia. And it basically, if the cartridge bearings in here wear out, Whyte's done a lot of things to make sure that doesn't happen. But if they do, they'll replace them free of charge for the original owner. So that's pretty cool. I know Santa Cruz does that as well with their suspension bikes too. But yeah, really, really neat kind of after-sales service. Just a small thing, something that you probably wouldn't think about too much when you buy a new bike. But if you've got one of these and you've had it for a couple of years and the bearings start to get a bit scratchy, that's the sort of thing that gets a big thumbs up from me. So big cartridge bearings in these pivots. The pivots themselves are quite oversized. Whyte's done a lot here to improve stiffness through the back end. So we've got large diameter cartridge bearings, big pivot axles as well. I actually pulled a couple of these apart yesterday and they are very, very chunky looking. So yeah, and in terms of the sealing that they use a special grease on the outside of the bearing, not just inside, but outside, to provide another barrier for water and dirt and grit from getting through into the bearings in the first place. And there's also an outer bearing shield as well. So they've kind of gone all out to try and keep everything as sealed up as well as possible. But if those bearings do wear out and you're the original owner, Whyte will replace them, which is pretty damn cool. Oh, we've had Good Soul is in the house and is saying, have any Whyte owners in here made use of that bearing offer? Guess not. That's a really good question. If anyone's watching this, if you own a Whyte mountain bike, specifically a Whyte full suspension bike, we'd be really interested to know if you have worn out bearings and if you've pursued the lifetime bearing warranty, it'd be good to hear some first-hand knowledge there. We've got loads of people tuning in here now onto this live video. If you're enjoying this, please give me a thumbs up for this video. And I'll also let you know we've got a lot of questions and comments coming through. I'm probably not going to be able to answer all of them, so I apologize if I don't get to your question while we're doing this video. Jensen is saying, or Jensen? I'm going for Jensen. Nope, my bearings are from May 2016 and just serviced the rear damper and checked them all in 100% working order. That's pretty impressive. So nearly 3 years old. Now that's a T130 you're on, isn't it? And Jensen is just saying that the bearings are still running smooth, which is pretty impressive. So obviously the attention to detail that Whyte puts into this pivot system. Bear in mind, they are a UK brand, and in the UK, there's a lot of wet weather riding, so it's very important to make sure the frame is sealed as best as possible to minimize that kind of bearing wear and tear over time. So yeah, very impressive bearing system on here. I will continue talking about bearings, but mostly the main pivot. Now, Whyte has been on this one-by bandwagon for a long time, so a lot of brands now are getting into one-by specific frames. So we're talking about frames that will not fit a front derailleur. I think even before XX1, the original XX1, Whyte was actually got word that SRAM was bringing out a 1x specific group set, a 1x11 drivetrain, and they went, sweet, we're into that. We're a British brand. Let's say goodbye to the front derailleur. Let's say goodbye to 2 chainrings on the front. We can do a whole lot with a 1x specific frame. So that was what, 6 years ago now? I think 7 years ago, wasn't it? 2011, 2012. Yeah, so it's ages ago when XX1 first came out. Anyway, Whyte kind of went full in with the 1x specific frame design. So no front derailleurs on their bikes for quite some time. And they call this SCR, single chainring design. And it's allowed them to do a few different things. So mostly it's about adding stiffness to the back end, and it's also about keeping the back end nice and short. So here we have a boost drivetrain, so boost 148 by 12 mil spacing on the back. Obviously with the boost drivetrain, everything comes away from the frame by 3 millimeters compared to a conventional drivetrain. So your boost drivetrain, the chainring comes away from the frame by 3 millimeters. That gives you a crucial amount of clearance down at the chainstay yoke to play with. So what Whyte has done there is they've slammed that back end as short as they can, 430 millimeter chainstay length. The alloy chainstays on here are really quite beefy though, so they've used all of that available space there. What they've also done is the main pivot is super wide. It's as wide as it can physically be. So they've got those 2 big cartridge bearings, they've put them as wide apart as they can, big axle through there, big pivot assembly, and that's all about strength and stiffness through the back end. So they want to give more rigidity to the rear end of this bike by using that really wide main pivot, and it's all because this is a 1x specific frame, but also they've just made use of all of that available real estate down there. So that main pivot comes quite close to the chainring in here. It's also to do with tyre clearance. So we were talking before about the somewhat limited tyre clearance on this bike. 29 by 2.3 is the official maximum tyre clearance on the back of this bike. So no, you cannot fit 2.5 or new school 2.6 inch tyres in the back of this bike. They won't fit. I'll be trying just to find out to make sure, because there is a fair bit of clearance around this tyre here, but I think Whyte has gone, we want to build this bike around 29 by 2.2, 2.3 inch tyres. It's a burly cross-country bike. It's a lightweight slash trail bike type thing, and these sorts of width tires are perfect for this type of bike, and that's what we're going for. It's aggressive geometry, it's designed for aggressive riding, so they've traded that up, the ability to run those kind of semi-plus tires for running that back end nice and short, for having that nice big broad main pivot. And they kind of say, if you want really fat tires and if you kind of want more suspension than this, go the S-150, because that bike has lots of tyre clearance and extra suspension. But if you want that sharp, kind of purposeful trail bike, the S-120 is for you. That's what Whyte says. All right, Thomas Lee is saying, I've got to go now, getting quite late here. 11 p.m. Oh, wow. Well, thanks for staying up late to watch the video, Thomas. But awesome live stream, and you explained very well. Thank you very much. I appreciate you joining in for the live video, and thanks for all the questions and comments along the way. Good Soul is saying, is that cable routing looping under the BB shell? I don't really like this, as I had the cables rub into the metal of the bike in the past. Yes, they certainly are. So they're internal through the down tube, and they pop out underneath the bottom bracket, and we've got internal gear cable routing through the chainstay, so that just eliminates any kind of chain slap issues with the cable there. The brake hose does run externally along the chainstay. You are absolutely correct though, if you do have cables running on the outside of the frame underneath the bottom bracket, you do have to be careful with routing. If the length isn't right, if the angle isn't right, if those cables are kind of splaying apart, chances are you will have issues with rub on the frame somewhere. So you do have to be careful about that. What's worth doing is letting out air pressure from the rear shock, compressing the suspension, and just checking the way that the cables move underneath the bike. I'll admit, I'm always a bit skeptical about exposed cables in this area of the bike, because it is an area where rocks can like smash up and hit things and potentially damage that gear cable, or heaven forbid, that brake line. It has happened before, not to me personally, but one of my fellow testers, he actually had a hardtail with external routing underneath the down tube, and he actually cracked open a brake hose from a rock that split it in half. Halfway down a descent, which was terrifying, but he was okay. Luckily, he didn't crash. But yes, you do. There's a certain amount of what's going to happen there. But I think as long as the length is right, as long as they're routed correctly, which this has come out of the factory pretty good. So I've got no concerns there personally. But I will let you know if we do have any issues. I have this bike for a while, so this is a proper test bike that I'll be reviewing for singletrackworld.com. There will be a full video on YouTube as well on this bike too. So we'll let you know if we've got any durability issues there. Stephen is saying, hello Stephen, welcome to the live stream. Rightio, so we're just talking about suspension design, pivots, we're talking about frame technology, geometry. If you've got any questions for me about this bike, drop them into the comment section right there. I'll do my best to answer them for you. I want to talk about this fork because we have a 120mm travel fork, and that's to balance the rear travel. So 120 on the front, 120 on the back. And this is a Fox 34 fork. Now, it's not just any Fox 34 float, it's the step cast design. So it has the slender lowers. It's purpose built around 120mm of travel. So it's kind of the lightweight version of the regular 34 fork. So it's the step cast version. So the weight is somewhere around 1,650 grams. I have not weighed this specific fork, but I've been testing the step cast fork myself on other bikes, and I can confirm it's about 200 grams lighter than a regular 34. So quite a bit of weight savings in the front end. The other interesting thing about this fork is that, we've got Trail Talk MTB in the house. Welcome, Trail Talk MTB. Looks amazing. Hi, Will. Hello, Trail Talk MTB. Thanks for joining us. Yes, I was just saying before, I think the aesthetics of this bike are growing on me for sure. I also like the stance, it looks mean, it's super long and it's slack and it's kind of low. It's got this very nicely proportioned feel about it. 44mm fork offset, that was what I was getting to there. So Whyte has been into short fork offsets for quite some time. So although it seems like a hot topic of the last year, Whyte's been like, hey, we've been doing this for years, guys. Like, get with the program. A lot of even their cheap hardtails have had short fork offsets for, I don't know, 5 or 6 years now. So we're going to talk about that in a moment. But Stephen Tom is saying, how's the weight? Well, I can give you the weight. It's pretty, well, I wouldn't say hefty. I would say solid is the weight. This complete bike here without pedals, without the bottle as well. So the bare bike as it comes out of the box with the tires set up tubeless, that's important because these wheels do come with tubes fitted, but the bike comes with valves in the box and the rims are already pre-taped for tubeless setup. The tires are also tubeless compatible. So all you need to do is take the tubes out, put some sealant in the tires and they will set up tubeless, which is pretty cool. Medium size we've got here, this is the S-120C RS. 13.35 kilograms. So that just comes under, it does come under the 30-pound mark, 29.37 pounds. So there you go. So not super light, especially compared to some of the other trail bikes I've been testing lately. Giant Trance 29 is lighter by a good 500-600 grams. Merida 120 is lighter, Canyon Neuron's lighter. They're all in the 12 kilo mark. This is 13.35, so it's pretty solid, really. Trail Torque MTB, that's pretty good considering how hard you could push it. Yes, Whyte has built this bike for more aggressive riding, so they haven't held back on some of the spec choices on here. The frame itself is under 3 kilos. According to Whyte, their claim is 2.78 kilograms, 2,780 grams. That's for a medium frame with the rear shock and hardware. So it's not bad really, under 3 kilos, given the kind of geometry on this bike and how aggressive it's meant to be ridden. I've got weights on wheels and tires. Let me know if you want to know those as well. Tom Strange, I know, not specific to this bike, but do you think we're going to be seeing a lot of these short travel, light, fast trail bikes? Yes, I think we already are. I think the last few test bikes that I've got in the house and that I'm currently testing are all along this kind of progressive geometry, aggressive trail bike. So putting that kind of enduro style geometry into a short travel trail bike chassis. I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of those in the near future. There are already quite a lot on the market, and the last 12 months, the brands have been going hot on this sort of thing. GT Sensor, that's a 29er trail bike, 130mm travel front and rear. That new Trance 29er I've been testing, which is an absolute shredder. Very aggressive geometry on that bike. And here we've got the S-120 from Whyte as well. And if you looked at the geometry of this bike and you didn't know the travel and you were going to guess, you would say it's definitely a 150mm travel bike, but it's not. It's 120. It is designed as a short travel, lightweight trail bike / burly XC bike. But with that 65.5 degree head angle, that huge reach, yeah, it's pretty progressive, that's for sure. Trail Talk MTB is saying, I find it a bit weird that the Geo is so aggressive, but the spec is a bit tame, like the S34 in the tires. Yes, you're absolutely right. So we're talking about the Fox 34 step cast fork, quite a lightweight fork. And we've also got Maxxis tires on here. We have a 2.35 inch forecaster on the front and a 2.25 inch Crossmark 2 on the back. Now I will say this, I've only had one ride on this bike so far. Yesterday I was out shooting video with this bike. I had the GoPro on, a microphone on, and you'll be seeing that video in the very near future of me kind of fumbling my way through my first ride on this bike, getting the cockpit dialed in, suspension settings, tire pressures, all the rest of it. There was one descent I did and I thought I was nearly going to tear the tires off this bike. I think they're very, very lightweight. The tires are kind of, you know, the Crossmark is kind of fun because it's a cross-country tire. It's so low profile, but because of the short back end and that long front center, the back kind of just steps out like really easily, but in a kind of controllable way that's really fun. I'm going to be seeing how that goes on a few other different types of trails over the next couple of weeks. But to be honest, I don't foresee these tires lasting very long on this bike. I think I'm going to destroy this rear tire in particular. So yes, lightweight tires and that 34 step cast fork versus everything else, which is kind of, you know, pointing towards super aggressive riding. But I guess that's the thing with most stock bikes, right? Is that the tires that they come with, tires are like shoes, you know, they're generally designed for a particular purpose. So most riders or customers who will be looking at buying this bike would go, well, I ride in the Lake District, so I'm going to need 2.3 inch Maxxis Shorty on the front and a 2.3 inch DHR2 on the back. So you can do that, you know, change the tires, change the personality of the bike quite quickly, according to the trails that you ride and your riding style as well. But yes, the tires, at least on my kind of first impressions, I'm thinking they're probably not going to last too long. Tom Strange, love them. I think it's way more practical than lugging an enduro bike around all the time. Great live stream. Thanks for enjoying, Tom, and thanks for watching. Glad you're enjoying, I should say. And yeah, we're just talking about getting on a kind of progressive, fun, poppy, aggressive trail bike versus being on a big travel enduro bike that's kind of dumpy and big and maybe a bit uninspiring to ride. First impressions of this is very lively, very poppy. I wasn't actually expecting that. I thought because it's so long and slack it was going to feel a bit too grounded. That ain't the case. It's quite happy to kind of pop and jump off things, and I think a lot of that has to do, well, aside from the suspension design, that short back end as well. Quite compact rear end, 430mm chainstay length, very stiff as well with that pivot system, and that big broad main pivot as well, all aluminium back end too. So you can definitely feel that stiff tracking, that rear wheel tracking really well because of the stiff rear end. Right, let's see if we've got any more questions come through here. Jensen's saying, gotta go. It's 11:23 p.m. here. Any questions on a Whyte T130? Feel free to contact me. Ride safe. Awesome. Thanks for joining in, Jensen, and thanks for staying up so late. Anyone who's watching this live stream right now, if you're enjoying, give us a thumbs up. If you've got any questions for me, drop them in the comment section below. We're doing this video every Friday morning Australian time, Thursday evening European time, I shall say, or UK time. And yes, we'll have plenty more videos coming for you in the future. And if you've not subscribed yet, if you're watching this and you're going, what the heck is this all about? But I'm enjoying it. There's a subscribe button right down there. You can click that and you'll get notified of all of our live streams in the future and all the videos I'm working on, including the first ride video on this bike, which I will say is rather entertaining if I don't. But yeah, you'll see that very, very soon. I think I've kind of covered a lot of stuff on here, but what I will mention, just a quick fire kind of run through of the spec. Trail Talk MTB is saying, they're so expensive in Australia. Any plans to reduce prices? No idea about prices, to be perfectly honest. I'm still waiting for confirmation on pricing from Carbuta on this bike. So if you know the retail price on this bike, that'd be great, because I don't right now. I only know the UK retail price, which is £3,499. Good soul, at Will, which trail bike do you own that you bought with your own money? The answer to that question is none. I own no mountain bikes. I don't own any. I have a road bike and a commuting bike, and those are the only two bikes that I own that I bought with my own personal money. I don't own a mountain bike because I spend a lot of time testing them, and at the moment I have 4 test bikes on the go at the moment. So there'd be no point in me owning my own bike because I just wouldn't ride it. I'd be riding test bikes all the time. I basically ride every day, sometimes twice a day, and to try and get as many miles on, or kilometers even, on various test bikes, swapping wheels and tires around, cockpits, even forks sometimes as well. So all of my available time goes into testing bikes. So yes, in answer to the question, I don't own any mountain bike myself. Stephen Tom is saying, opinion on Forecaster. My personal opinion, I don't like it. I'm not a big fan of the Forecaster tire. It performs well. It's fast, I'll give it that for sure. And it performs well if the conditions are good, it's a fast rolling tire. So if it's sort of hard pack but not too loose over hard, if you've got kind of nice soft loamy kind of, you know, gentle kind of forest type trails, it's a great tire. Anything outside of that, I find it to be too drifty. I find the knob height is really shallow. The sidewalls are quite thin as well, so to run it at lower pressures to get a little bit more moldability to the tire, I've already shredded one on a different test bike on the back of the Merida 120. That comes with a 235 Forecaster. But whenever you've got kind of loose rocks or anything that's kind of gnarly, this tire, it's too drifty for me, for my liking. But at the moment, I'm kind of trending towards burlier, more aggressive tires. So I'm a big fan of the Minion DHR2 at the moment. Getting along with that Bontrager SE5, XR5, XR4, SE4, those kind of tires. Specialized Butchers. I haven't ridden the new Eliminator, but that looks really good as well. So I'm kind of trending towards that kind of aggressive tire because I'd rather have more grip than not enough. I'd rather a really grippy, sticky, confidence-inspiring tire that's slow compared to a much faster tire that's kind of drifty and sketchy. That's my personal thoughts. Stephen saying, DHR, DHF, heavy, laggy tires. Absolutely. They are not fast tires whatsoever. If you're racing, if you've got any, any kind of racing aspirations, you do not want to be, we're talking about cross-country endurance racing, you do not want to be on those tires, that's for sure. But for having fun and for maximizing traction out of your bike, very, very good tire combo. Tom is saying, is asking a question here, what is your favorite bike that you have tested that you'd own if you had to? All right, we're getting a little bit off topic here, Tom, but that's a great question. I would suggest going to singletrackworld.com and searching for Editor's Choice Awards. You'll be able to see my Editor's Choice Awards for 2018 and 2017. I believe they're both on the website. And that includes, I think there's 4 bikes on there. 4 of the best bikes that I've personally ridden over the past couple of years. The one that stands out to me is the Robot R130. That bike, I tested that last year for the magazine. That bike was absolutely phenomenal. Made me feel like a superhero. Robot R130. So if you search for that on singletrackworld.com, you'll find my review of that. I would recommend checking that out because it was a barrel load of fun. Mark is saying, what brakes are on the Whyte? Excellent, Mark. Thank you for the segue. We were going to talk about spec on this bike, so let's talk about brakes. These are SRAM Guide RSs. I like that Whyte has gone for the RS over the R or the Guide T. Because the RS has the swing link in the lever. Now this is basically a little linkage that changes the leverage between the brake lever and the master cylinder, the main piston in the lever. The swing link is really important for adding additional leverage towards the end of the stroke. So you get quite fast kind of pad movement to begin with. It's very similar to the servo wave technology that Shimano uses in their brake levers. Anyway, basically the Guide RS lever versus the Guide R lever, which doesn't have the swing link, the Guide RS is much, much better, particularly for power towards the end of the stroke. So you get a lot more, you know, when shit's getting real and you really need to, oh my God, I need to slow down, I'm going to go off that cliff. You get a lot more deep stroke power with these Guide RSs. 180mm rotor on the front, 160mm rotor on the rear. I believe the larger sizes come with 180 front and rear, but this being a medium, we've got 180 on the front, 160 on the rear. Interestingly, the rear has a flat mount, which is actually a road bike standard for disc brakes, but Cannondale has been using flat mount on the Scalpel and also on the FSI hardtail. Whyte has been doing it on some of its newer bikes as well. Very, very neat in terms of the frame assembly itself, but I found it really fiddly setting up the rear brake on this. There's a couple of extra bolts there that and a bit of extra movement that's a little bit difficult to kind of tune and get the pads centered over to the rotor. But yeah, interesting spec design there. Mark Davies, 4-pot or 2-pot. The SRAM Guide brakes have 4 pistons. The SRAM level brakes, which you might be thinking of, have 2 pistons. They're the cross-country brake. SRAM Guide brakes are your kind of trail or mountain enduro brake. And then the codes are the downhill brake. They're also 4-piston, but they're 4 bigger diameter pistons for more power. So this is the SRAM Guide RS 4-piston brake. We've got Whyte's own handlebar and stem. We were mentioning that before. 780mm wide bars, big bars, short 40mm stem. I think one of the most exciting spec choices on here is this Revive dropper post. So bike yoke, not many people will be familiar with them, but you'll know of this dropper post. I think Bike Yoke started out by making custom shock yokes for specialized enduros and stump jumpers, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, they're doing some other products now, including this excellent dropper post. This thing is, without doubt, the most slippery, smooth dropper post I've used. There's basically next to no friction. Once you hit that dropper post, I'm going to see if I can compress it now. There we go. Do you want to, we'll see this dropper come up. Let me move on this side. Are you ready for this? You ready? Just have a listen. Woo! It's quick. And it's got a really definitive thunk when it gets to full travel. So when you're banging about on the trail, I noticed yesterday, you can hear it. You always know when that saddle has returned to full height. I really like that Fox transfer, the newer generation RockShox reverb, the newer generation KS Lev dropper post as well, Specialized Command dropper post as well. They all have that really positive top out clunk, and it's good because you can hear it, which is not always possible with some dropper posts. So 160mm stroke, that's huge for a medium size. I've been complaining about a few bikes I've been riding lately, medium frames that are coming with 125mm droppers. Whyte's gone, nah, we're not doing that. 160mm all the way. So that's been made possible by a relatively short seat tube, but also because the Revive dropper, it's very shallow, the height of the external bushing or collar up here. It's one of, I think, if not the lowest stack height dropper post that you can get on the market. And that basically gives you more room to play with to get more travel. So I'm not too far away from the kind of maximum height minimum height I could be running here. So that's perfect, that's fantastic. 160mm of travel, and of course it's got that Revive function. So if you get the squishy dropper post vibe where air gets inside the IFP, you can actually flick that lever, compress the dropper, let go of it, pop it back up, and it recirculates the oil, the air back out of the oil and where it should be, which is pretty cool. What have we got? Seat tube length. Really good question. I don't know that off the top of my head. I want to say 435. It's under 440. I'm pretty sure it's 440 or less. I'm clutching at straws here. but I know it's under 440 millimeters for the medium frame size. Whyte.bike, I think, is the website if you want to have a look at the geometry, or singletrackwheel.com. We've got a first look story on this bike with all of that information. I cannot remember, and I didn't write it down. I'm very sorry about that. Stephen Tom, 435, still long. For a medium frame size? No, I don't think so. A lot of other brands, like you've got the Fuel EX that I was doing the video on last week, that's 441, 440. The Canyon Neuron CF, now that's too long. That was 445 for a medium seat tube. Way too long. But obviously a big German brand like Canyon believes that's the correct size for that frame. So that's what they've built it around. But I would say 435, 10 millimeters shorter than that Canyon Neuron. I wouldn't say this is long. But hey, it depends on what you want. I mean, if you wanted to run a 200mm dropper post, then yeah, absolutely, the seat tube is too long. But obviously there's a balance to be had there with how compact that frame is going to get versus how stiff you want the whole structure to be. And I know Whyte's paid a lot of attention on this S-120. This carbon fiber mainframe is pretty burly. It's not the lightest on the market, that's for sure, but they have built it to be burly, stiff, to track well, and basically be supportive of the riding that this geometry is capable of. So yeah, not the lightest bike. We were talking before about 13.3 kilos for this complete bike without pedals, without the bottle. But yeah, more robust in general. Oh, we've got Billy Bot Basher. Medium is 431. Thank you very much. Thank you, Billy Bot Basher, for confirming the seat tube length on this bike. 431 millimeters. There you go. So that's how they've been able to fit that huge 160mm dropper post. I have short little stubby legs. My seat height is quite low for my height. But even on this medium frame size, I've got no issues with fitting this big 160mm dropper. So big thumbs up to Whyte there for putting that short seat tube on. We were just arguing about seat tube lengths, and thank you, Billy Bot Basher, for correcting me on that measurement. Loving the fact that medium sizes are getting shorter seat tubes so people like me can get better reach. Absolutely. I think that's a big trend we're seeing across the mountain bike industry, across all frame sizes, where seat tubes are getting shorter in order to facilitate longer dropper posts, which is fantastic. I mean, we've had some lately come through. Fox Transfer, that's 175. RockShox Reverbs, 175. You've got the 9.8 dropper post, the 4-line, that's available in 200mm stroke, which is a huge dropper post. But to be honest, every time I've tried a dropper post that's longer travel than what I'm used to, I've taken a couple of rides to get used to it. And then you go back to a shorter travel dropper post and you kind of think, I'd really like the extra 10, 20mm of travel now. You kind of get used to it, so and appreciate it too. There is a limit, obviously. You know, even as the seat comes down here, it starts getting quite close to the rear tire at full compression. So there are limitations there. Also, when you're going down really steep stuff and you're kind of hanging over the back of the bike, especially with the 29er, because of the bigger wheel, you'll start to run into issues with hitting your arse on the rear tire on big compressions when it's really, really steep. So there are limitations as to how low you can go or how low it's useful to go. But in general, yes, shorter seat tubes, fantastic. We're seeing longer dropper posts, which are great. I don't know if I've got any other details on there. Oh, we've got race face rims. We'll just quickly talk about the wheels. These are 27mm wide. These are offset ARC rims, alloy rims, full complement spoke, J-bend spokes, so normal spokes. We've got 32 spokes on the front, 32 spokes on the rear. Very normal, you know, workshop-friendly build. Seal bearing hubs. These are Whyte hubs, seal bearings, but they are sealed to the wazoo. So we were talking before about some of these frame features, these rubber seals that Whyte uses on here to weatherproof its frame. And oh, Len is asking threaded bottom bracket. Yes, of course, it's a threaded bottom bracket. So another UK-friendly feature, easily serviceable, easy to pull that bottom bracket. The threaded BB is worth shouting about, in my opinion. Yeah, absolutely. If you saw the first look story on singletrackworld.com, one of the features that I wrote about was the threaded bottom bracket. So a lot of brands going press fit system. But yeah, a lot of people, particularly in the UK, seem to be a little bit press fit phobic. Maybe they've had press fit BBs in the past that have been creaky and noisy and have had poor durability. That threaded system simplifies things as far as being able to pull it out, bang a new one in. It's a lot easier than having to tap out a press fit bottom bracket cups, I should say. What does the hub sound like? Well, we'll see if you can hear this. Can you hear that? Have you got that, Mark? It is a 6-pawl system, and I believe there's something like, it's over 50 points of engagement. I haven't actually checked yet, but it feels like around sort of 52, 54 point engagement. So 6-pawl engagement on that rear free hub. It is sealed very, very tightly. So at the moment, it's got quite a lot of seal drag. I presume that's going to break in and bed in over time. That's something I'll be monitoring myself. But definitely just rolling along, you can feel a little bit like the rear brake is rubbing because the seal on the back is so tight. But I believe Whyte does that with their hubs because they want to seal the hubs and the bearings inside and the free hub mechanism from water and dirt and mud from getting inside. And over time, those seals should, in theory, bed in. But I'll let you know once I've had some more riding on this bike. Sorry, just dropped in. So this is Max. Hello, Max. Welcome to the video, Max. We were just talking about how big are the disc brakes. And Good Soul has very kindly answered the question, 180 on the front, 160 on the rear. Thank you, Good Soul. And there you go, Max. Yeah, so SRAM Guide RS brakes here, 180 front, 160 rear. Yeah, so I think we've kind of, sorry, Max, we've kind of covered all the details and you've just tuned in. I don't know how long we are through this video. Oh, we've gone over an hour. So well done, everyone, for hanging out with me for an hour in the workshop. If you've enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. And if this is the first time you've joined us before, make sure you hit that subscribe button just down there. It's somewhere underneath the screen here, because you'll get notified of all the live videos that we do in the future. And that way you can join us from the start. And I've got a lot more videos I'm working on. I've got a video on the Merida 120 trail bike coming next week. We've got a first ride video on this bike coming next week. I filmed it yesterday. I still need to edit it, but I will hopefully have that coming next week. And I'm also doing a video on fork offset testing that is a long time coming. I wanted to get that done earlier this year, but I've had more test bikes come through with reduced offset forks. So I've been swapping forks around on different test bikes, getting different feedback, handing them around to other testers. And I've been chatting to a lot of interesting people, including Ian Alexander, one of the chief designers from Whyte, Chris Porter from Geometron. We've been chatting to Trek, Specialized, Pivot Cycles, Scott, Canyon, loads of different brands, loads of different companies, getting lots of information about fork offset, trail, geometry, front-end handling. So I'll have a detailed video coming about that and a detailed article on the website as well. So yeah, I'm going to leave it there. I hope you've enjoyed watching this live Q&A video on the Whyte S-120. Hopefully I've given you a bit of information about this bike, but if there's anything you kind of, what the heck is that for? Let me know in the comment section below. Put your questions there. If you've got any feedback or comments on this bike, do you like it, do you not like it? Let me know. Drop your feedback in the comment section. As I said before, give us a thumbs up for the video. Subscribe for more videos. And if you want to read the detailed first look article on the website, singletrackworld.com. We've got Simaster. Where are you? It's daylight outside. I'm in Australia. I'm in the future. It's Friday morning here. So I can confirm that Friday is going to be fantastic for you. So you've got a great Friday to look forward to. Presumably it's Thursday evening, wherever in the world you're watching from. Old Bimbler, really enjoyed my T129. This bike looks awesome. We'll stick with my T130 though. Yes, so the T130, we were talking about that before. That's a 27.5, 130mm trail bike. This is the 120mm travel 29er trail bike. So very, they're occupying a similar space. But yeah, I'd love to get a ride on that T130 at some point. Hello from the past, Peak Districts. Indeed. I'm sure it's a bit darker where you are, and late as well. So thumbs up to everyone who's watching late on a Thursday night in Europe somewhere, and everyone watching from the UK as well. Thank you so much for joining in the video. Thanks for all your questions, all your comments. It makes it a load of fun for me, so make sure you tune in next Friday morning Australia time / Thursday evening UK time. I'll be doing another live video then. I don't know what on. I'll kind of work that out next week. But make sure you tune in, and as I said, subscribe, and you'll get notified of those videos when they come through. All right, guys, I'm going to head off. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed the video. And same time. Yes, that's the plan. Same time, 8:30 a.m. in the morning, which is 9:30 p.m. in the UK. So that's the plan. Next Friday, next Thursday night. I'll see you guys then. Hope you have a fantastic weekend filled with riding goodness. Make sure you get out there, catch up with mates, drink beers, eat great food, ride bikes, have fun. I hope you have a ripper weekend, and I will see you on the other side of it next week, and we'll chat to you guys then. We'll see you next time, guys.